good morning. So today we're going to install the Summit third function hydraulics onto this John Deere 3038e. And I'm just going to go through that process using their instructions. And people complain about the instructions, so I figured I'd go through it and do a step-by-step, but without talking you to death. First thing, open the box. They get the card out, then I had to go to the internet. They give you a card, tells you application and where to pull it down from the internet. And there's your booklet right there. Read the whole thing, but the most important part right now is the parts list. Go through the box, make sure it's all there, and move on. Okay, went through the list, everything's here. Pretty self-explanatory, except for this one right here, which is, according to the picture, looks like two little washers, or big washers, so they fit that hole. But it may be just a rubber washer or something that goes between the fittings. It's not vastly important. I don't have to be worried about it, so I'm not gonna waste my time with it. But just make sure you check, make sure your hoses all match up and there's not two of the same ones. Well, actually there's two identical and then there's two different ones. But anyway, go through your parts list, make sure it's all there, and we'll get started. All right, so my first bit of folly. Step one says to install the fittings onto the valve assembly, P&T ports, but they don't ever tell you that you have to install the block to the valve, and that's pretty obvious, but you got to pop off this little protective cover here that they've got on with this plastic pieces. I'm going to do that now, and then I'll start putting my fittings on. But rather than risk contaminating and getting a bunch of dirt in here, we're just going to put it all together first, and then we'll put the fittings on that. Once you remove the cover, you gotta make sure your O-rings are in there, and we'll install the block, line up the holes. Everything should line up, and that way you won't have any leaks. Contamination is important. My history is aircraft mechanics, and we had to be really careful with hydraulics, so probably not quite as important here, but still keep it clean. Installing the valve, they send you four of these guys here. They send you an Allen wrench. The Allen wrench doesn't fit. That's a 4mm. We're going to put those in and snug them down with this Allen wrench right here. Always good to check your parts and your tools. Make sure you have them before you get too far in. All right, so I snugged these down, used a crossing pattern, used my 4mm Allen wrench. 1, 2, 3, 4. Did it a couple times, made sure they were nice and snug. Now it looks like the picture. Now we'll start installing the fittings according to the instructions. Probably a no-brainer, but you're gonna need a little hydraulic fluid, and when you put these fittings on to this, the O-ring side goes in. We always coat the O-ring with some hydraulic fluid. So I got some clean hydraulic fluid right here. Gonna make sure we get that nice and lubricated before we tighten it up. And do that, we're just gonna take some on our finger here, work around the fitting, get it on the O-ring all the way around. Doesn't take much. It'd look better if I had this on a tripod and it was easier to use both hands, but anyway, that's the intent. And then we screw it in here, snug it up. And there you have it. All four fittings installed, snugged them up, 7/8 inch open in, keeping the caps on it, keep it clean. Moving on to the next step, which is going to have us put the bulkhead fittings onto the bracket, which is right here. And obviously there's no O-ring involved in that at this point, but same process applies. All right, snug these on here. 2 1-inch wrenches works fine. Snugged it up. Put my caps back on, make sure no dirt on here. The O-ring O-rings are on here for the fittings to attach to for the quick disconnects. I assume those O-rings are what they called out in the diagram earlier, although they didn't call them out on the other fittings, so I don't know why they call them out separate here. But anyway, there are O-rings there for that purpose when we install the quick disconnects. All right, folks, I didn't find the instructions to be very helpful in installing this, so I figure I'll share this with y'all. Maybe it'll help you. So the configuration for my tractor was I did not have the power beyond in the back of the tractor. They refer to that somewhat in the instructions. Or a power beyond that comes off of the selector valve up here, an extra port, don't have that either. But the hoses they sent, and the way it works, the way it makes sense, is you come back to your pressure line. It's the back port right there. Have your pressure line, run this hose. I don't have it tied up yet. I'm gonna zip tie it. I'll show you that at the end. You bring it up all the way up to the bottom of your P fitting. This is labeled P for pressure. This is T for tank. You bring the tank fitting back out and over back to the spot where the original hard line was connected. The original hard line was connected back here. Anyway, take that hard line out that goes back. Just put this in place of it. Run this hose right here. Run this hose from that port that was your pressure line right to here. Bring the line that this line here now comes back, runs down in place of that metal line underneath here, hooks to that point. Now all my hydraulics work, and then when I get my switch hooked up, I'll be able to actuate off of this. These two lines run to the front, which I routed them along the side here. Just pretty self-explanatory, but the only thing I did do I wanted to make sure I was back far enough from the implement, so I reversed it and put it on the back of the pipe, and I tucked it up a little bit. It's in an upward angle, so it's easy to get to, but that's all of preference. So one last look at hose routing. So this was clear for everybody, but out of your pressure port, came over here, zip tied it to this line right there, followed along, picked up the line above it just so it's stable. I snapped that one off. Another one on the lower line, and then bring it over here, and I'll bring it up and around back to the original mounting block. And then it comes back around right through here, up to the inside connection, which is your P fitting, which is your inside fitting right there. Your outside fitting is your T fitting, and it comes back, and that hose comes back up where my finger is right here, all the way back up to the valve, followed up right up here. Anyway, there it is right there. It goes into the valve right back there. All right, so this will be a little noisy, but everything's hooked up. Handles right here, buttons one front and back. Front one brings it down. Back one brings it up. You'll have to service it. All right, so it's cycled through a couple times. I'll probably do it a couple more. Check the hydraulic levels. This was a quick connect deal, so I didn't finish the wiring the way I should have. I just went straight to the battery, but I'll reconfigure that, and then later I'm going to put a spring bracket up there to catch that hose, so when I'm operating it doesn't hang down and get caught on anything. But there's the connections. Hoses are all tied off. The instructions say to hook to the battery, which is right there, which I temporarily routed because I'm actually going to run this back and tidy it up a bit.
but I needed to get it operating to make sure everything was working right. And so all those connections as previously identified work. Got a little bit of cleanup to do yet, and we should be good.